My name is Alex. I work with Foresight Institute. I have a bit of a different profile probably than the usual people working for Foresight. I mean, like each of us has like amazing profile, right? But I'm a creative director. My background is like in art and philosophy and system design, let's say, with technology, and I've been bridging technology and art for now around 10 years. So when I onboarded Foresight, we've been actually like talking about this like kind of a bridge between the creative sides and the sciencey sides. Even if you have a lot of creativity also in science, what actually like this transdisciplinary can bring into each of your fields, Guy, and what kind of actually goal we can achieve with this transdisciplinarity regarding long term is also, and regarding existential hope visions of the future, right? So we are bootstrapping everything. It's like an ongoing experiment actually. It's an amazing place actually to work with artists and be able actually to plug them in amazing, like with those amazing scientists that are really like working at a level where like most of the population cannot get in any info, right? I mean, in our and your fields is might be very easy, even though, to get the info on what you've been working on, what is your visions, etc., etc. But like for most of the people, right? Like I mean, like the society, it's really hard to get to know you, get to know what you've been working on, and the vision that you are trying to convey, right? So actually, like bridging science and art can be one of the way to be able to outreach and to communicate more about the possibilities that science and technology can bring, and especially the positive possibilities and the positive futures that we can find out in each of your field and research, right? Why is it so interesting? I think like if you see it in the point of view of like a historical point of view and an art historical point of view, you can see that in the 80s, 70s, we've been representing the future in a very like enthusiastic way, like flying cars, nice things. Like it was very, very enthusiastic. We always had like this dystopias and everything, existential risk going on. But all in all, I think there was like a very enthusiastic way of like grasping the future, right? In the level of the society, right? The common ground. And then what happened in the late 90s to the 2000s is that the community, the society started to think more about existential risk, more about dystopia than about like any good future for us. We have like the collapsology today, which is like a very common and shared mindset of our population, and we have like many different examples of that. Okay, so what do we do with that? We can actually attest that there is like a kind of like distinction between the 90s and today. People tend to think about the future in a more dystopian way, right? But what does it mean? I think that communication actually and being able to envision the future can actually accelerate the future and can actually like when you know where you are going, right? You can do it in a much quicker way than like when you are like just wandering around and not having like any goal, right? So having like a common idea and a common vision of a positive future for the society can actually first accelerate maybe research and implementation of science and tech, and it can also, I think, lead us to regulate and navigate through the implementation of the technology towards a better usage of those, right? Less like risky or dystopian. It's like you can find this mindset at many different levels, right? When people are saying, yeah, you need to imagine yourself in the future in the best way, best shape, and you're gonna get that. I think it's like actually something that we can practice in community, and we can envision a better future. So, with Beatrice, we've been actually working on bridging science and arts in order to bring those amazing visualization into the society. And I don't know if the internet is working. It's not working, but I have in my mess some kind of like it's still nothing. Okay, I'm gonna show you our like metaverse. It's still loading. The internet is quite slow. Everything will appear. But yesterday, actually, I started also to introduce to this experience, right? So sorry. Okay, but we can stop here. So I think with Beatrice, we created this spin-off, Existential Hope. This is a spin-off of Foresight because we have this highly techy, sciencey level of Foresight. Amazing for every one of you. But then, like, how can we actually outreach it, right? And spread that, right? As a virus, like what is communication is something that we can discuss, but I think there is like communication is just not word that can be like, I think communication is something like more physiological. It's like, yeah, but this is another question. So actually we've been looking back to our founders and we've been reading again Engines of Creation, wrote by Eric Strexler, one of the founder of Foresight, and we stumbled on this quote saying, "New technologies will nurture new arts, and new arts will bring new standards." How do you understand that? This is like the tricky thing, and we can talk about that. Let me finish this quote. "The word of breadth matter offers room for great but limited growth. The word of mind and pattern," so I guess he's talking about science, artists, right? "The word of mind and pattern so holds room for endless evolutions and change." So maybe we can like actually reflect on one example, which is the biotech. So my parents, like most of the society, don't really know what is biotech, right? However, we've been talking with designers and fashion designers about the amazing materials that biotech is now working on in labs, right? And they were like amazed. They was, wow, can we meet those people? Can we meet those scientists? Can we actually bootstrap something with them? So actually, like, new technology will nurture new art. I think this kind of like, oh yeah, can I have this new materials? Can I apply it into like my world and can I spread it throughout the society? This is something, I think this is a bridge actually to implement science and tech into our society and like reach out the point of a positive future we want, right? And new art will bring new standards. Same with this example of fashion, and this is the way I'm understanding this, right? You can like we can argue on that. Is that okay? If we can actually like dress with those biotech materials that are biodegradable, that can maybe heal our skin or something like that, check the level of like sugar, blood, blah 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 in our body, right? We are implementing new standards and we are actually shaping an entire new way of understanding how we dress, why we dress, and we can through that thing if I continue, this idea is like, if we can change the standard of fashion, we can maybe stop the fast fashion, and this is one of the most polluting industry, right, in the world. So bridging art and science can actually have like major impacts in our societies, and this is what we've been doing. I hope everything is now downloaded. Yes, it is. So here we have a few examples of NFTs created by artists with our fellows. So basically, we invite an artist who's like, oh, I'm more into neurotech. Okay, let's have a chat with Marina Polyakova, one of our fellows, and let's see actually how you can bring what you want and shape it as you want, right? As an artist. So we have now artists working with Marina Polyakova about neurotech. So this is a deep dive into a brain. And it's actually like bringing to the society new perspective, right? What do we see today on our Instagram made by artists? Maybe like some picture of naked woman, some landscape and everything. What kind of future of the world are we shaping if our artists on Instagram are sharing like deep dive into brains, right? Maybe we're going to end up with like VCs in 30 years, very, very interested into like brain emulation and all those kind of things, right? So it's like really like using this like emotional conveyor in order to get into our brains and shape the future. So yeah, I have many different examples. So
yeah, do you want to show more of them, or do you want to do a few questions?
We can do questions if you want.
But I think one of the things that I just think is fun to reflect on with what the Eric Drexler quote is, I think of transhumanism, like bringing on, like heightening your senses or gaining new senses. I don't know, Anders Sandberg, I'm sure you've all seen him. He's got like different types of gadgets that he's like, oh, I like to have a new sense. And like this is something that like we could make artwork that's like, I don't know, something that only like dogs can hear now. Maybe we can start hearing this soon if we have like technology that.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything in particular like this that you're excited about?
So actually bringing awareness about like, I think like I'm so passionate about nanotech and biotech. I think there is a big way for artists to get into that, and especially also designers, and try to implement those new materials, new way of sculpture, like of making sculpture and everything into the real world. This is the real world, but like into the common world that can be shared with the society. Actually, this is the thing. And it can have a massive impact on how we build houses, how we have our like everyday materials surrounding us, how I'm dressing and everything, and it can change the industries and it can change our level of pollutions. And we had this exhibition about the work of Union Feng, one of our fellow also. Like basically, I'm not a master in nanotechnology, but basically he's like working on new materials, right? Maybe new way of like creating plastics without using fossil fuels. And for us, it's like, yeah, obviously we're doing this for 20 years already. People don't know about that. Really, people don't know about that. When they were in front of this artwork, it was like, okay, this is like, the artist is creating those new materials, but it's similar to Union Feng, so they merge together, they collaborate together. And here you can see that this artist was inspired by a new way of creating plastic at a nanoscale, very sustainable, without having any need to outreach any like materials or fossil fuel to get this like material. And people were amazed. So I think like this is actually something that this kind of bridge need to be bootstrapped, and we need to be quicker at that. And it's actually super important to implement technology. Let me come back to my old beloved.
I'll ask you a question while you walk over there. So I know like you're extremely interested in DeSci, meaning decentralized science.
Yeah.
And these NFTs are part of like a way to do DeSci. So maybe I don't know if everyone's familiar with DeSci. Maybe you want to just say what it is a bit and how these NFTs are doing that.
Yeah, sure. And this encapsulates what I've been talking about. Thomas Kuhn, epistemologue, writes, evolution and implementation of science and technology involve not only cognitive dimension, but also social, economic, and cultural choices in which intervention is possible. And I think this intervention we're like starting to experiment it. So DeSci, this is another thing. So everyone is familiar with IP NFTs? Maybe not. Okay. So NFTs are those like Bored Apes and everything. Okay. But guys who are like working in the salon over there are actually bootstrapping a new protocol called the IP NFT. And basically, it's like you are a researcher, a scholar, you're working on an IP. You can put this IP on the market as an NFT, and then people can buy a part of this NFT and co-own, like the society can co-own an IP, and the society can invest into science through the blockchain technology.
And IP is intellectual property.
Yeah, intellectual property. Yeah. So once your IP is ready, it's already like on chain, right? People already funded you to make this research. They are already investors of your research. And so when a big pharma company or an industry need your IP, they are not knocking at the door of your lab. They are knocking at the door of this blockchain. There is no door, by the way. But they're saying, can I buy it? Or can I, whatever. And you make it true. And the entire society that is owning your IP, and you are owning also a part of this IP, obviously, and say, yeah, we are ready to sell it to you. And so the transaction is made on chain. And all the people that funded this IP can get some money out of it, right? There is many different facets to this protocol. This is like I explained it very quickly, but if you think about that, is the main difference is that you are like crowdsourcing your funding, right? You're crowdfunded your IP somehow because you're putting your IP and asking like to a larger population, can you put 500 euros in there? Can you put 10K? Can you put, right? And so to gather this society that could be interested invested into your IP, you need to incentive this society, right? If my mother needs to invest into your IP, even if it's 500 euros, she needs to know what is about biotech, nanotech, etc. So actually working on those kind of bridge between art and science can help us to grow the amount of people aware about science, and can help our population to invest into science. So this is a matter of choice. Do you prefer having like a small, impartial amount of investors investing into your IPs and your research and funding your research? Or do you prefer going on chain and like opening the way you can invest into this IP and offering the capacity to the society to invest into science and make their own actual decision about what kind of science should we invest in, right? And this requires a larger communication, and this requires to really level up the scientific literacy of our population. So all in all, everything is really related to our capacity to actually talk and incentive and level up the scientific literacy of the population. Because that can be like, that can disrupt our way of funding science.
Yeah, and also these NFTs are funding science.
Yeah, so the NFTs that we have all over those walls, they all have a very interesting story, right? But all those NFTs are funding the science of the fellow who is attached to each of the NFTs. This is a donation so far. We are not doing IP NFT yet, I hope, at Foresight. For the moment, we are doing what we call DeSci NFT, decentralized science NFTs, because it's a way of like slowly getting into the IP NFTs.
Question?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you so much for your presentation. So I'm getting now involved in a project that's like using qualitative research methods. So it's basically like we're conducting interviews with people who work at NSF, both like mostly in places that are highly affected by climate change and environmental degradation. And we're trying to document like their perceptions of it, like how it's affecting people's like the people that they're serving and how it's affecting their operations and such things like this. And in addition to that, what we're also adding as like an innovative research method is like to ask people to bring an artifact to document or to like, let's say, like illustrate their perceptions of climate change and environmental degradation. And so this artifact can be an object, can be a song, can be a story, can be like anything that they wish. And I'm just wondering, like, have you seen is it like numerical art as a way of like also collecting data from like you know like let's say different channels of collecting qualitative data, or like would you say there could be an opportunity of like transforming those artifacts that are collected into numerical art, and like maybe as a like awareness raising or like a funding mechanism?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the ecology in the art field like really started to be a thing like in the 50s or the 60s when we started to have land art. So people actually like creating art installation with stones, big stones, on the beach, and creating those installations that you cannot move. And that was, I think, one of the first, and I'm not a specialized in that, but I think that was one of the first occurrence of this art who is like actually mixing with nature in the sense that they're trying to raise awareness about the beauty of the nature, that the nature is something that we are changing and how we are changing this, and like this kind of like also fragility of it. So yeah, anyway, so it started like that, and now yes, we have artists working with data and generating data from nature, data from oracles, right, generating artworks. I would say that one of the challenge of this is to be understandable, because there is one thing to plug your data about like the number of waves somewhere to a pattern, and another thing to be able to communicate and convey these emotions and explain something out of it. Are you illustrating or are you doing something else with art? This is like the big question actually with this. Like, is it illustration or is it like creation, doing something? And so actually digitalizing the artifacts could be an entire art project on itself, I think, like digitalizing all those artifacts, putting them, I don't know, in a metaverse or something like that, just to store also the I think, what are you storing? You're not storing just artifact, you're storing the history of people bringing something because they think this and that. So you're storing all this like kind of ecosystem. So it's very holistic to digitalize this and encapsulate the story. Yeah.
I think we're at the hour, but I think one more question. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, you actually touched upon it then, which was what I was going to say. I mean, just to go back to the Drexel quote at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I read that, I mean, I can remember it from when I first read it as well. I read that as like arts in the legal IP sense, rather than art as artistic art.
Mm-hmm.
Art in terms of the creation of something using labour,
Mm-hmm.
which of course can include
art,
as we currently know. But that kind of like then ties in with, I think, what you were saying a minute ago, which is that one thing that I'm really interested in terms of the, so I'm part of a university program in the UK, which is, to any Americans, doesn't sound like a big thing, and even to Europeans as well, in terms of its liberal arts and natural sciences, but we are completely unique in the UK in terms of the flexibility that we offer students. And one of the key things I work on is how you actually get people, whether it's students or us or any other researchers, whoever, working across that art science divide. And exactly, the easy, boring way is represented. Art is representing science.
Yeah.
But it's funny how, it's interesting how at the beginning you kind of like refer to art as kind of like a way of communicating science. I would say that's kind of like next in the hierarchy, but then the ultimate one, which is what you referred to at the end here, is actually the utilization of new tools which have stemmed from scientific research precisely to create art. Now the thing is that they all kind of they can bleed into each other, but I don't see anywhere at the moment that actually has like a program which clearly delineates between them or actually expands on those relationships. So that's something which I'd be really interested in, kind of like working with people there on as well. I think for the moment, generative art, I see so much of it on Twitter, and it's just like, that's just stemming from coding. Okay, so it's a tech thing rather than from lab-based science. But it's just like, oh wow, it looks cool.
Yep.
If you work in it, then you know how complex it is in terms of actually like all the coding you have to learn how to do. And it's got to that stage now where you can come out with new artifacts, NFTs and whatever else, but actually how they're generated is really a much cool scientific way. So actually there wasn't a question, because there was going to be a question.
No, continue, it's a discussion.
So I think it's fascinating, really interesting. And that stuff about IP NFTs, I'm also very interested in. So
And I think one of the challenge of IPs and NFTs is not to reproduce the crowd that we already have. Like if IPs and NFTs are just a new protocol to exchange value between the guys who are already investing and the guys who are already doing science and who are already chosen by the investors, big pharma companies and everything, okay, you just reproduce something, right? It's like DAOs, right? So how do you create a new governance and not the same that we know today, like the physical one? So actually like bringing most people and creating this like very sciencey, literate society that can invest and earn money out of what scientists are working on, it's super important. And if you think about that, last thing, today, if I want to invest into science, I need to be super into the ecosystem, right? Otherwise, I can buy some shares from pharma companies, right? But pharma companies already like the choice of the future they wanted. They invested already into like startups after the valley of death, like everything like that, right? So think about like early stage science. How can you actually fund by with the population? Like it can be like a massive impact and massively disrupting.
I'm trying to push it.